Chapter 453, Start of the Summit. The current Keisukage, Gara, the current Tsukikage, Oenoki, the current Reikage, and the general of the Land of Iron, Myphian, were seated around a round table, and while Gara, Oenoki, and Myphian wore neutral facial expressions, there was an impatient frown on A's face. Myphian Dono, are there still no news about the Hokage and Mizukage? The meeting is about to start, and we still haven't heard anything about them. Myphian shook his head when he heard A's question. No, I still haven't heard anything about their arrival. In fact, I haven't even gotten a report about them crossing the border. A was about to complain, but before he could do so, Gara opened his mouth and started speaking. There is no need to worry, they will be here soon. Before anyone could question why Gara was so confident, 6 people appeared above the conference table and landed on it. A widened his eyes in surprise when he noticed that one of the new arrivals wore a black cloak with red clouds on it. His anger was ignited instantly as a cloak of lighting chakra covered his body. Without a second of hesitation, he attacked the individual wearing the Akatsuki cloak. You bastards tried to kidnap me, die. The person they attacked was unbothered by the attack and simply lifted their hand, which was quickly covered by a layer of ice, and caught the punch without flinching. A shockwave exploded from where the 2 hands met, but neither of the 2 people moved a single centimeter. Meanwhile, Tsunade looked around the room and quickly realized that she was inside a conference room. Probably the conference room where the Cage Summit would be held. She completely ignored Yuna, who somehow managed to switch into an Akatsuki robe while they were traveling, jumped down the table, and sat down on her designated seat. Sorry for the delay, I hope you didn't have to wait too long. Don't worry, it's still before the designated time, Tsunade. Tsunade nodded at Gara, who didn't seem to be the slightest bit surprised that their group appeared in the middle of the room. Yuna, who had just caught A's punch, had a face-splitting grin on her face as she looked into his face. Hee, you are the one who ordered for my cute little Hinata to be kidnapped all those years ago, right? How about we go a few rounds? As she said that, she flared her chakra, causing the table she was standing on and the room's walls to crack. I couldn't help but wonder how Yuna could have so much chakra without using the Kyuubi's chakra, but before he could put up a strong front to Yuna's provocation, someone yanked on the scruff of her neck and pulled her off the table. You promised me you wouldn't start a death match with the Reikage, Yuna. Don't be like that, Hinata. It wouldn't be a death match, I swear. Hinata scoffed in disdain when she heard Yuna's words. Frankly, she did not doubt that Yuna was telling the truth, however. Cutting off his arms and legs is no good either. Hinata could easily see through the loophole Yuna was going for. Instead of arguing any further, a pout appeared on Yuna's face as she allowed Hinata to drag her away. Since the person affected didn't want revenge, Yuna decided to give up. Although most people could only look at the scene that just played out in bewilderment, Myphian was not done with the situation yet. What's the meaning of this, Hokage Dono? Why did you trespass into my country like this? Since Mai seemed to have no idea what was going on, and Tsunade reacted calmly to appearing inside the meeting room like that, Myphian concluded that she knew what was going on. Tsunade pondered on Myphian's accusation for a second when she realized why they traveled here the way they did. Actually, we didn't trespass at all. Our first teleportation was towards the border of the Land of Iron, where we filled in our documents properly. Only after we were done there did we teleport inside here. So you will probably receive notice of our arrival in a few hours, Myphian Dono. Myphian's eyebrow twitched in irritation as everyone looked at Tsunade's shameless behavior in bewilderment and surprise. After thinking about what Tsunade said some more, Myphian decided to drop this matter. After all, they were here for peace talks, and he would rather not sour the mood before it even started. Fine, I will let this matter slip, however, why can you just teleport in here like this? As far as I know, the Flying Thunder God seal needs markers to be placed beforehand. Tsunade couldn't help but chuckle in amusement when he heard Myphian's words. It's cute that you think Yuna didn't sneak one of her markers in here ages ago. Myfian's eyes bulged out when he heard Tsunade's words. Are you telling me that she somehow managed to get a marker into this very room? This is one of the best secured rooms in the country. Are you trying to start a war by admitting that you made one of your shinobi sneaker seal into this room? Tsunade actually started laughing out loud when she heard Myfian's accusation. Fa ha ha, you actually think I can control what Yuna does? Ha ha ha. Tsunade started laughing even louder while repeatedly smacking her hand on the table like she had just heard the greatest jerk ever, causing a few dents to appear on the table. Instead of being angered due to Tsunade's behavior, Myfian couldn't help but feel some pity for her as he could hear the insanity in Tsunade's laughter. This woman went through a lot of mental anguish. I heard rumors about Yuno Uzumaki, but this is on another level. Myfian shook his head with a wry smile as he asked his last question. Why did she wear the Akatsuki robe, and where did she get it from? Instead of answering Myfian's inquiry, Tsunade's gaze landed on Yuna, who quickly stepped forward and responded to the question. I wore it because I wanted to mess with you, and I always carry a few sets of Akatsuki robes with me in case I need to frame them for something I have done. Myfian's eyes became empty when he heard Yuna's answer, while he could also see Tsunade and Gaara nod as if what they just heard made any sense. I see. That was all he had to say. Chapter 454, Sorry, I acted on instinct. After Myfian regained his wits, he straightened his back and looked at the 5 attending cage with a severe expression on his face. Please put your hats on the table. You are here today because Reikage Dono called for this meeting. I'm Myfian, and I will be your moderator. Let's begin the meeting. As soon as all hats were on the table, I started talking. I gathered you here today to talk about Akatsuki, an organization that had undoubtedly caused all of us some trouble. Except for Tsunade, every cage in the room nodded their heads when they heard A's words. Naturally, A noticed Tsunade's behavior and a frown appeared on his face. Are you disagreeing with my words, Hokage Dono? MHH. No, not really. It's just that Konoha has already got rid of most of them, so I don't see them as much of a big deal. How many are even left right now? It's like 2, I think. A snorted in disdain when he heard Tsunade's words. Are you seriously trying to spread that nonsense propaganda you feed your citizen in a meeting with all of us? Tsunade tilted her head in confusion when she heard A's words. Propaganda? I'm not sure what exactly you are talking about. Isn't that obvious? The nonsense that almost all of Akatsuki attacked Konoha and that you repelled them easily. Like a single person in the room would believe something so ridiculous. Tsunade pondered on A's words for a short moment before realizing that that was indeed quite the ridiculous story. She couldn't help but glance at A with a combination of pity and envy. Ah, poor man, he still isn't used to Yuna yet. How pitiful, yet enviable. Saya can understand where you are coming from, so I guess a little peek is fine. Yuna, if you would. Yuna, who was currently getting her waist pinched by Hinata because she tried to massage Hinata's butt, jerked up when she heard Tsunade's words and looked around the room in confusion. While doing so, she met eyes with Samui, who was here as one of A's guards, and gave her a wink, causing her to blush. Sorry, the whole conversation was incredibly boring, so I wasn't paying attention. While some people's eyelids were twitching due to Yuna's dismissive words, Tsunade, who was seemingly expecting that answer, only nodded her head and patiently started explaining the situation again. Well, Reikage Dono doesn't believe that we repelled Akatsuki so easily. Yuna nodded her head and looked at A, who was currently looking at her provokingly. After looking at A for a short moment, Yuna shook her head and looked back toward Tsunade. I don't give a shit what he believes. After fighting the reanimated third Reikage, Yuna no longer had any interest in the current one, who apparently was weaker than his predecessor, while using similar techniques. Ban. Quit with your insolent attitude. A's fist smashed on the table, and as soon as it did, all people assigned as guards except for Tsunade sprung into action and appeared in front of their respective cage. While Hinata didn't move at all, Yuna appeared in the middle of the table, a dense, almost entirely blue chakra cloak covering her body, 9 chakra tails surrounding 9 chakra chains growing out of her body. Additionally, all of that was covered by highly ornamented ice armor. Ha ha ha, all right, it's a free-for-all. We can also do an all vs me if you want, ha ha ha. Incredibly powerful pressure engulfed the whole building, causing most of the samurai in the building to tremble in fear or straight up faint. While the people in the conference room fared better, most of them had pale faces due to the pressure they felt from Yuna. None of them believed they could actually contest against her strength. However, just when a fight seemed inevitable, someone yanked on the scruff of Yuna's neck yet again and pulled her off the table. No death matches. Come on, Hinata, just a little one. No. Hee, then let me fondle your butt as compensation. Definitely not. Hee, in that case, I will just forcefully take what I want tilde. Why Yuna, don't do that, or I moan stop it. Seeing Yuna fondling Hinata's butt while Hinata was resisting, while not really resisting, the tension vanished instantly. Instead, it turned into an awkward silence where everyone still had their weapons drawn, but there wasn't any intent to fight in the air. After everyone awkwardly put their weapons away, Tsunade chuckled in amusement. Well, I assume you now realize how we managed to repel so many Akatsuki members. A's face grew solemn when he heard Tsunade's words. Considering what he had just seen, there was only one conclusion. A perfect Jinchuriki. Tsunade couldn't help but chuckle in amusement when she heard A's words. Hee, a perfect Jinchuriki, and she missing something. A frowned when he heard Tsunade's words, but his eyes opened wide in terror moments later. Impossible, the brother as well. Yet again, Tsunade chuckled but didn't confirm or deny A's guess. Why are you willingly revealing so many of Konoha's secrets? This time, it was Oanoki who asked that question, getting yet another chuckle out of Tsunade. Hee, yes, if I'm willing to tell you something this important without any hesitation. It makes you wonder what else Konoha is hiding, doesn't it? A and Oanoki's faces grew solemn when they heard Tsunade's words. The power of that Jinchuriki was usually one of a hidden village's most important secrets, so the fact that Tsunade so willingly gave that information meant that she was bluffing or Konoha was significantly stronger than they assumed. Additionally, even if she was just bluffing, the presence of 2 perfect Jinchuriki alone was already a massive deterrent for A and Oanoki. After all, Kumogakure had only 1 Jinchuriki while Awagakure had 0. And to make things even worse, it was the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, the most powerful of the Bijou. Before anyone could say anything else, a weird plant-like creature burst out of the floor and started speaking. Hello tilde, I'm here for a little Analka tilde. Splat. Before the creature could finish speaking, a cake hit it in the face, causing quite a few gazes to wander towards Yuna. Sorry, I acted on instinct. Chapter 455, I'm nobody's pawn. The creature that came out of the ground wiped away the cake in its face and was just about to start talking when a dozen icicles pierced through its body, killing it instantly. How uninteresting. I have no desire to listen to a small free's words when the supposed ringleader is here himself. Isn't that right, Obito? Everyone's gaze followed Yuna, and all of them saw a man wearing an orange mask with 2 holes and the typical Akatsuki cloak. Before Obito could get a word out, Yuna resumed speaking. There is no need for that, Hinata. That's just a clown. Everyone was confused by Yuna's words and noticed that Hinata was no longer standing behind Tsunade. The more experienced people saw a slight shimmer behind Obito before Hinata returned to her position behind Tsunade. Meanwhile, Obito had cold sweat flowing down his back like a river. Did she just sneak up on me? No way, I didn't notice her at all. It's fine. I would have just slipped away with my kamui if she really attacked me. Everything is fine. No problem. Toby is a good boy. A and Oanoki wore rather ugly expressions as well. Unlike Mai and Gaara, their nations had no alliance with Konoha, so someone with such outrageous stealth could quickly become their worst nightmare. They both considered trying to get rid of Hinata somehow before instantly discarding the idea. Hinata herself was already almost impossible to catch, and having Yuna by her side made it pretty much impossible. Especially so due to Yuna glancing at the duo when the idea popped up in their minds, giving them the chills. Meanwhile, Obito regained his bearing and started talking. Today, I came here to tell you about my plan and asked for your cooperation, so listen well to the tale I am about to tell you and about my Eye of the Moon plan. After ensuring that he had everyone's attention, Obito nodded his head and started speaking. There is a stone monument deeply hidden under the old Uchiha clan compound. It can only be read by those possessing the Shah. Brewing tilde. Obito flinched when his explanation was interrupted and glared at the culprit. Yuna, shouldn't you let him talk? He is about to tell us his plan after. Yuna shook her head when she heard Mai's words. If you want to know his plan, I can give it to you. I can even tell you the tale he just started. Well then, Sage of the Sixth Path sealed the 10 tails inside him. The 10 tails was too strong to keep it contained, so he split it into 9 separate forms before his death and sealed its body into the moon. Rinnegan can summon the body, and he is currently gathering the 9 separated parts, the bijou. He wants to reform the 10 tails and become its Jinchuriki and then use a powerful genjutsu to trap the whole world into an illusion, allowing them to live inside a peaceful fake world. There you go, no need for any long-winded explanations. Obito opened his mouth and kept it like that for a few seconds before closing it again. He wanted to say something but had no idea what. Only after a few more seconds did a single word escape his mouth. How? Yuna chuckled in amusement at the dumbfounded Obito. She also noticed that most people in the room would like to know the answer to this question as well. Hee, haven't I already told you the last time we met, Obito? In front of my eyes, no truth can be hidden. A chill went down Obito's spine when his eyes met Yuna's. However, he wasn't even the most affected by Yuna's words, as a particular black creature hiding inside one of the walls was trembling in fear. Is that really the truth? Does that mean that she knows about Mother? Impossible. That is impossible. As she must have guessed most of it. Right. The Kyuubi must have told her a few details and she must have guessed the rest. She never mentioned that Obito would cast the genjutsu using the moon, so she clearly doesn't know all the details. Despite the uneasy feeling Yuna's gaze gave him, he swallowed some saliva and continued talking. Anyway, Toby is a good bee. Cough, no, not that. Cough anyway, I asked for all of you to cooperate with me. Hand over your Jinchuriki so I can finally bring peace to this world. Sure, you can have Konoha's. Well, you will have to capture her yourself, so good luck with that. Gaara could only smile wryly when he heard Tsunade happily handing over Yuna. He really wondered what Yuna had done to her. He decided that he would rather not know about that on second thought. Anyway, his thoughts about Tsunade's behavior aside, Gaara had something to say to Obito. A world where everyone lives happy lives trapped inside an illusion is not a truly peaceful world. It's just a fake world with fake peace. I have no desire to live in such a world. Obito looked around the room and noticed that everyone seemed to have a similar opinion as Gaara, causing him to shake his head in pity. Very well, then I have no choice but to declare this the start of the Fourth Shinobi World War. Big words for someone who didn't even dare to come here in person. Obito's anger spiked when he heard Yuna's words. He flared his chakra while his Rinnegan started shining menacingly. Do not anger me any further, or you will regret it. Yuna rolled her eyes while lifting her arms as an afraid expression appeared on her face. Oh no, a single Rinnegan, how intimidating. Especially after defeating the guy who had two of those. Obito got even angrier when he heard Yuna's mocking words but didn't say anything else. This was a verbal battle he knew he wouldn't win. I await the day when your cold corpse lies before me. And I have not the slightest interest in a pawn like you. Following Yuna's words, Obito's clone poofed into a smoke cloud. When the real Obito received his clone's memories, he tilted his head in confusion. Pawn. I'm nobody's pawn. Chapter 456, What the hell happened to her? As soon as Obito left, awkward silence covered the room. Most people were somewhat surprised by Yuna viciously mocking the leader of Akatsuki. Most people in the room couldn't help but feel some pressure from Obito, but she seemed to shrug it off rather casually. When Yuna saw that everyone was in a daze, she shook her head and loudly clapped her hands together, causing those who were deep in thought to flinch. Well, there you have it. The Fourth Shinobi World War is about to start. So, let's unite the world against a common enemy, shall we? Myfian's eyes shone with interest when he heard Yuna's words. That right. This is a good idea. We should create a vast alliance for this. As far as I'm aware, the enemy possesses multiple bijou, so this is not a war a single country can face alone. I agree with this idea. Surprisingly, Oanoki was the first to agree. He had considered allying with Konoha a long time ago, but his pride always got in the way so far. He was aware that Konoha's strength was above Iwagakure by a large margin for a while now, and after seeing Yuna's display of power, he finally managed to break through his pride. He expected he had to pay a huge price to ally Iwagakure with Konohagakure, but the way things were going, it seemed like it would happen for free. I agree as well. Me too. Yeah, it's fine. Shortly after Oanoki's agreement, Mai, Gaara, and Tsunade accepted as well, causing A to frown. By now, he had pretty much no other choice than to accept. If he didn't, there would be an alliance between 4 of the 5 great shinobi villages, putting him in an awkward spot. Fine, I agree as well. Myfian nodded with a happy smile on his face. In his opinion, this was the perfect opportunity to ally the 5 great shinobi villages with each other, which hopefully would prevent future wars. Very well, allow me to create the official documents to get this alliance going. Everyone nodded their head at Myfian, and a few seconds later, realized another essential matter. Who will be the leader of this alliance? A thoughtful expression appeared on everyone's face. Being the alliance's leader would bring a lot of prestige and power, so it was a rather enticing position. If I might make a suggestion. Myfian asked that question, and after looking at the faces of the attending cage and seeing no rejection of his words, he resumed speaking. Personally, I think Keisuke Dono is not fit for this job. Although I do not doubt his strength, he is still very young, and I assume many people wouldn't be happy serving under someone this young. Gaara nodded his head in acknowledgement. He had the same opinion. He might have the combat strength of a cage, but he is not even a fraction of the experience of the other cage. When Myfian saw Gaara acknowledge his statement, he resumed speaking. Tsukikage Dono has the opposite problem. He has vast experience, but he is simply too old. I do not doubt that Tsukikage Dono is a capable leader, but some shinobi will undoubtedly think otherwise. Although Oanoki wasn't happy about Myfian's words, he reluctantly agreed with them. He was not as young as he used to be and constantly had back problems. He was in no condition to take on such a massive task. Then there is Mizukage Dono. She has the power and the experience necessary to lead the alliance, but unfortunately, Akatsuki has close ties to a country, which might cause people to be suspicious of her. Unfortunately, she is disqualified as well. Mai simply nodded her head with an annoyed expression on her face. Although she wanted to deny that Akatsuki had close ties to the land of water, she knew that that was very likely the case. After all, the previous Mizukage was manipulated by an Akatsuki member. So, all she could do was sigh and give up on the position. Finally, we have Reikage Dono and Hokage Dono left. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure which of these two would be the better candidate, but I suggest that we choose one of these two. Seeing everyone nod in acknowledgement, Myfian smiled in satisfaction. He was just about to ask Tsunade and A for their opinion when... Gulp gulp gulp. Puha tilde that hits the spot tilde. The sound of someone repeatedly swallowing something echoed through the room. Myfian looked at the source of the noise in confusion and saw Tsunade taking multiple large gulps from a large bottle that undoubtedly contained alcohol. Tsunade Dono. Naturally, he was shocked that Tsunade suddenly started drinking. Tsunade was just about to take another gulp when she heard Myfian calling her name, making her frown. What is it? I wasn't really paying attention to the conversation, so a small summary would be nice. Myfian's eyes became empty when he realized that Tsunade didn't care in the slightest about who would and wouldn't lead their alliance. In fact, he wasn't even sure about whether she was aware of what was going on or only agreed to the alliance since everyone else did. After thinking about it for a short moment, he made a decision and started speaking. We just decided to make Reikage Dono the leader of the allied shinobi forces. Tsunade pondered on Myfian's words for a short moment before nodding her head in agreement. I see, sounds like fun. I'm in as well. Oh, and congratulations on becoming the Alliance's leader, Reikage Dono. I would offer you some alcohol so we can raise our glasses in a toast to your new position, but this is the good stuff, and I'm unwilling to share. Everyone looked at Tsunade with a combination of pity and bewilderment before their accusing gazes landed on Yuna, who could only shrug her shoulders. Hey, don't look at me like that. She has always been an alcoholic, and I'm just giving her the good stuff. I don't think that is the main problem here. Yuna tilted her head in confusion when she heard Myfian's words. It isn't? No, it's her total disregard for the current situation. The world is in peril, yet she is barely listening. Ha ha ha, what are you so tense for, Myfian Dono? Since Yuna's here, everything will be fine, burp. Before Yuna could answer Myfian, Tsunade intervened and talked to him half-drunk, causing Myfian to shake his head in pity. What the hell happened to her? Chapter 457, A Little Lemon. After the meeting was over and everything was decided, Myfian offered everyone to stay the night. An offer that all the cage accepted. Currently, two naked women lay next to each other on a bed. One of them had a relaxed expression on her face while casually resting her head on her arm, while the other was gasping for breath and sweating heavily. These two were Yuna and Hinata. Damn, stamina monster. Yuna chuckled in amusement when she heard Hinata's complaint and lightly scratched her fingernail over Hinata's skin, giving her goosebumps. It's not just the stamina that's important, it's the technique as well, tilde. Why Yuna, stop it man. I'm still sensitive. MHH, no tilde. Yuna continued teasing Hinata for a bit longer before calmness returned to the room. After a few minutes of comfortable silence, Yuna opened her mouth and started speaking. I think I will go and eat up my now. Hinata pouted when she heard Yuna's words but didn't say anything in return. Yuna grinned when she saw Hinata's reaction and moved her body, resulting in her sitting down on Hinata's stomach, her face only a few centimeters away from Hinata's, while their breasts were touching. No comment on that, Hinata. MMPH, do what you want. Yuna's grin widened as she leaned down even further, causing the duo's noses to touch. Hee, I want your permission before I go. Hinata couldn't help but get annoyed by Yuna's words. It was rather obvious what she was doing after all. By now, Hinata was more or less fine with my joining them but still acted aggressively against her. It was rather similar to how Hinata started out with Anko. So Yuna wanted her to admit that she was okay with my joining instead of just not preventing it. No, I won't give it. Hee, don't be like that, Hinata. Isn't she a beautiful woman? Just take a look at those breasts, won't your head feel amazing sandwiched between those? Hinata's face blushed crimson as she heard Yuna's questions and she averted her eyes. And nonsense, the only breasts I'm interested in are yours, Yuna. After that sentence left her mouth, Hinata managed to blush even harder, causing Yuna to chuckle in amusement. Hee, is that so? I remember rather clearly how you were happily fondling in. Don't say it. Before Yuna could finish her sentence, Hinata quickly covered her mouth, forcing her to stop speaking. It's fine, you can go to my. Why you have my permission? Yuna's smile widened as she pushed Hinata's hands aside and gave her a deep kiss. Remember, I will never stop loving you, Hinata. Hinata couldn't help but smile warmly at Yuna's words. Indeed, Yuna is someone who has a lot of love to give. Far more than a single person can handle. Well, I had already accepted that there would be others when our relationship started, so there is honestly no longer any point in arguing about it. Seeing the acceptance on Hinata's face, Yuna gave her another kiss and wanted to get off of Hinata, but Hinata gripped her hand before she could. Wait, although I gave you my permission, there is a condition attached to it. Yuna raised her eyebrow when she heard that. A condition. That was not something she expected Hinata to say, but she decided to listen carefully for now. So, what is it? A surprisingly devious expression appeared on Hinata's face as she said her condition. I want Mai to be unable to walk properly tomorrow. Yuna's eyes widened in surprise, and moments later, an equally devious expression appeared on her face. That is very evil. I love it. After all, it was rather obvious why all the cage decided to stay here, in enemy territory. This was the perfect opportunity to have some conversations between fellow village leaders and maybe even a chance to fish for some information. If Mai were unable to walk properly during all that, well, it would be rather comical. Yuna leaned down again, giving Hinata another kiss. This time, their tongues started fighting each other as the duo exchanged saliva. Yuna could feel Hinata's hands move down her hips until they finally reached her butt and fondled it. The duo separated a few seconds later, an excited expression on both of their faces. Another round? Yes, but this time you will do all the moving, Yuna. Hee, as Princess Hinata commands. Around 2 hours later, Yuna left the room with a satisfied expression on her face. Meanwhile, Ao and Chojuro were standing in front of Mai's bedroom, and while Ao had a guarded expression, only boredom could be seen on Chojuro's face. Do you really think we need to guard Mai-sama's room the whole night, Ao-san? Of course. That is our job, after all. Chojuro could only sigh and continue standing around. For some reason, Ao decided that there was a high chance that Mai would be attacked tonight, so he was currently on edge. Meanwhile, Ao certainly thought Mai might be attacked, but things went exactly as Chojuro expected. That damn monster is definitely coming after Mai-sama tonight. I can feel it. I will protect Mai-sama no matter what. 2 hands appeared next to his head as those thoughts went through his mind. One covered his mouth, silencing him instantly, and the other one, glowing with an arrangement of blue seals, touched Ao's head, causing him to fall unconscious immediately. Then, the 2 hands gripped him and pulled him towards the ceiling, where he vanished into the darkness. Say, Ao-san, wouldn't it be better? Ao-san. Chojuro didn't notice Ao's disappearance at all and resumed talking to him. While doing so, he moved his head and saw that Ao was suddenly gone. Before he could do anything else, the 2 hands reappeared next to his head and gave him the same treatment Ao received, ultimately pulling him into the darkness. That was too easy. A figure wearing nothing but black with only their purple eyes visible appeared where Chojuro previously stood and glanced at the lock, keeping the door closed with interest. Well, this shouldn't be too hard. A professional-looking lockpicking set appeared in the figure's hands, and after taking 2 of the tools, it disappeared again. The figure inserted the first tool to put tension on the lock and then moved the other one. Let's see, that's a click out of 1. 2 is binding. Oh, nice click out of 3 tilde. And so, the figure casually started lockpicking the lock to Mai's run. Chapter 458, Yobai. Mai Terumi was currently resting in her room with a complicated expression on her face. I know I said that we should wait until Yuna is a little older, but that resolution slowly crumbles away every time we kiss. What am I even supposed to do? Let's see, that's a click out of 1. 2 is binding. Oh, nice click out of 3 tilde. While Mai was deep in thought when she heard a soothing voice from the other side of the door. Is someone seriously lockpicking my door? Do they have a death wish? And it's open tilde. As soon as the door opened and the person who had just picked it open entered the room, Mai inhaled deeply and shot a wave of lava at the trespasser. However, before the lava could reach them, ice walls grew from the ground and blocked the lava. Ha ha ha, as hot as always, Mai. Mai was startled when she realized that the trespasser was none other than Yuna. Why Yuna? Why did you lockpick my door? Can it even be called night crawling if I didn't have to pick a lock or two? In night crawling? What do you mean by that? Yuna chuckled in amusement as she approached Mai and lifted up her chin to make her look into Yuna's eyes. That means that I will eat you up tonight, tilde. A shiver went through Mai's spine when she saw Yuna seductively licking her lips. Moments later, she tried to push Yuna away from her, but she wouldn't budge in the slightest. Why Yuna, we talked about this. The age gap between us is too big and we should wait a little longer. Yeah, I remembered that, but I decided to ignore that conversation. After saying that, Yuna got even close to Mai, who quickly increased her struggle. Yuna, this is not right, you are too young. Yuna snorted in disdain when she heard Mai's words. Too young. Mai, I'm having filthy disrespectful sex almost every night and sometimes even during the day. I don't give a shit what's right or wrong. F filthy and D disrespectful. Oh, yeah. We usually reach the level of, if someone found out, they would immediately report us to the authorities, and sometimes we even reach war crime levels of filthiness. War crime. What the hell do you do? Ma, what can I say? Karen is a pervert. And you aren't. What are you talking about, Kurama? I'm a pure, innocent maiden. Fa ha ha. Shoo you are. Anyway, that is a different matter because those three you are together with are not arbitrarily making up random rules they want to follow. Mai powdered in annoyance when she heard Yuna's words. It's not arbitrarily. It makes me uncomfortable sleeping with someone half my age. Yuna sighed deeply when she heard Mai's counter-argument. I really can't understand the weird standards some people hold. You are against two consenting adults sleeping with each other but are totally fine with sending a group of 12-year-olds out on a mission to kill people. That's a different matter. Yes, it is. One involves a life and death situation and the other one is having some consequence-free fun together. Mai paused when she heard Yuna's statement. She had never looked at it from that perspective. That is actually true. I send young genin on missions outside the village on a daily basis. Although the death rate of tasks involving genin is very low, it is not zero. When comparing sending someone at the age of 12 out on potentially deadly missions and having consenting sex with an adult half your age, the former undoubtedly sounds worse. Yuna saw Mai's resolve wavering, so she decided to finish this. Anyway, let's make it easier for you to decide. Mai got out of her contemplation when she heard that Yuna had resumed speaking. She focused on Yuna and listened to her words with curiosity. You have two options. Option 1, you agree, and then we FCK. Mai couldn't help but roll her eyes at the first option. Obviously, she knew about that option since this is literally the reason for Yuna being here. Before Mai could make any snarky remarks, Yuna continued speaking. Option 2, you disagree, and then we FCK. Mai rolled her eyes yet again. She knew what kind of person Yuna was, so she knew that she wouldn't force herself on someone like that. As long as Mai disagreed, Yuna wouldn't do anything. Stop talking nonsense. I know you, Yuna. There is no way you would force yourself on me without my consent. That is simply something I know you would never do. Yuna wagged her finger at Mai while shaking her head. Sorry, but you are wrong. Or rather, you are misreading the situation. I certainly wouldn't force myself on someone who didn't want it. However, you dear want it, don't you? As she said that, she pulled Mai's head towards her and stopped just before their lips were about to touch. A slight blush appeared on Mai's face as she could feel her heartbeat accelerate. Do I really want this to happen? Obviously, I do. I wouldn't have allowed Yuna to kiss me so often if I didn't. Yes, no matter how I look at it, I've grown to love this crazy woman in front of me. But is it really fine despite the massive age gap? No, it doesn't matter. As she said, we are both consenting adults, so there is no problem at all. Very well, Yuna. I agree. Let's have some fun. A predatory smile appeared on Yuna's face as she pinned Mai to the bed. Hee, very well. Neither of us will get any sleep tonight, Tilda. Huh? No, wait. I need to be in good condom. Unfortunately, Mai couldn't finish her sentence as Yuna had already started her attack. Hee, let's have a nice battle, my Tilda. A shiver went through Mai's spine when she heard Yuna's teasing words. However, she could feel herself getting excited as well, causing her to lick her lips lavishly. Yes, let's have a nice long battle, Yuna Tilda. Chapter 459, A Big Lemon. A wide smile appeared on Yuna's face when she heard Mai's words. She leaned down and gave her a deep kiss which Mai swiftly reciprocated as the duo's tongues started fighting each other. Moments later, Yuna could feel her lips getting hotter, which she immediately counteracted by injecting some ice chakra into her own. She wasn't sure whether Mai did this subconsciously or not, but using chakra in this way during kissing was something only Mai had done so far. Mai moaned in pleasure when she felt Yuna's ice chakra collide with her lava chakra. She didn't even understand why, but the collision of ice and lava felt incredibly pleasurable to her. While the two were kissing, their hands started roaming as they slowly undressed each other. A loud moan escaped Mai's mouth as Yuna's hand slipped into her clothes and started massaging her breasts, quickly followed by another when Mai's hand grabbed Yuna's butt. Unlike Anka, who likes to dominate, and Karen, who wants to be dominated, Mai preferred a more balanced relationship, so Yuna decided to go at Mai's pace. Experimentation can be done at a later date. Moments later, the duo was entirely undressed, and Yuna took a good look at Mai, making her blush a little while doing the same to Yuna. Hee, you are beautiful, Mai. Compared to her other Hari members, Mai had a different charm to her. If one were to put her into a category, she would be considered a mature beauty. Although strictly speaking, Anka could be regarded as one, her rapid personality somewhat destroyed that image. Mai smiled when she heard Yuna's compliment as her hands continued roaming all over Yuna's skin. You are beautiful as well, Yuna. Naturally, that wasn't just empty praise either. Yuna's skin seemed very smooth. There was no excess fat on her body, and her arms and legs had well-defined lean muscles. That, combined with her hair, which was currently done into a simple ponytail, gave her a somewhat tomboyish look, which was a nice contrast to her well-defined medium-sized breasts and butt. Thank you, Mai, and I love you. At first, Mai was somewhat flustered by the sudden confession, but seconds later, a happy smile appeared on her face. I love you as well, Yuna. Hee, in that case, we should get started already, no? Before Mai could ask what exactly Yuna meant by that, Yuna lifted one of Mai's legs, and moments later, the duo's pusses were pushed into each other, immediately causing Mai to moan loudly. What is with this position moan? MHH you don't know about it. It's a classic mine. Obviously, my didn't know about it. She might usually act as a seductive beauty, but she had very little knowledge about sex apart from what was taught at school. When it came to sex between two women, she had no knowledge at all. Another moan escaped Mai's lips as Yuna rubbed her pink folds into Mai's. While one of her hands was busy pressing Mai into herself, Yuna moved her other hand and resumed fondling Mai's breasts while occasionally giving her erect nipples a slight pinch. Mai noticed that she was totally being toyed with by Yuna, so she quickly retaliated by grabbing her butt, massaging, and squeezing Yuna's cheeks to her liking. It feels so good, Yuna. Yuna smiled at Mai's words and gave one of her nipples a slightly harder pinch, causing Mai's body to jolt as another moan escaped her mouth. Mai gave Yuna an accusing glare, causing her to chuckle in amusement as she continued rubbing their cunts together, producing all kinds of wet sounds. Mai lifted her two hands that were still massaging Yuna's butt and gave both cheeks a foamed spank which made Yuna hum in pleasure. Too bad, I'm into that shit tilde. Obviously, that was retaliation for the pinch, but Yuna didn't mind a bit of pain on top of the pleasure, and considering Mai's moan was pleasure-filled, she didn't either. Let's finish moan the first round. Yuna slightly shifted her body while moving Mai's a little as well, and moments later, an intense jolt of pleasure rippled through Mai's body as Yuna and Mai's clits were now touching. Why Yuna, T. Mo 910. Moan. Mai tried to get a few words out, but she was barely able to speak due to the pleasure ravaging her body, and only a few seconds later, she arched her back as a powerful orgasm coursed through her body, making her scream unintelligible. Simultaneously, Yuna also got an orgasm, and she allowed it to take control of her body, making her whole body shake as a pleasure-filled moan exited her mouth. It took her a few seconds to regain her bearing, and when she did, she glanced at Mai, making her smirk. Mai's eyes were still unfocused as she absent-mindedly stared at the ceiling. A content smile was on her face as she bathed in the pleasure of her recent orgasm. Before Mai could regain her bearing, Yuna leaned forward and gave her a deep kiss, which made Mai open her eyes in surprise. However, she quickly returned the kiss as her tongue started wrestling with Yuna's and her hips resumed grinding. After around a minute, the duo separated again, and Mai wanted to take a deep breath only to be interrupted by her own pleasure-filled moan as Yuna's hand resumed massaging her breasts. Hee, you didn't think we would stop after a single round, did you? As I said, we'll be doing this all night tilde. Mai pouted when she heard Yuna's teasing words. You could have at least waited for me to regain my bearing before you continued. No way, where is the fun in that? As the word of fun left Yuna's mouth, she gave Mai's nipple another pinch, resulting in a loud moan and another double slap to Yuna's butt cheeks. Ha ha ha, this will be a fun night, Mai. Just let yourself go and enjoy yourself. If there is something you want to do, just tell me. As the degenerate that I am, the chance that I will reject you is relatively low. Mai chuckled in amusement when she heard Yuna's words and nodded her head in understanding. Although she currently had no requests in her mind, the night was still young. Chapter 460, yet another story of the past, began. Inside a highly decorated room with complex-looking formations spinning on all the walls, a mature woman with pure blue hair and white eyes was sitting cross-legged on the ground. She had been sitting like that for multiple days by now. However, after a few more minutes of sitting like that, she took a deep breath and stood up. Surprisingly, the breath manifested as white mist and hit one of the walls, freezing a small patch of it. As expected, after my breakthrough a few hours ago, I've reached a bottleneck. There is no point in further cultivation for now. The woman looked around the room and sighed deeply. Guess it's time to abandon this place as well. Although I have killed very few young masters over the course of the last few years, who knows who is currently hunting me down? The woman nodded in approval at her own words, walked towards the only door into the room, and opened it. Welcome, Yuna-sama, and congratulations on your breakthrough. As soon as she opened the door, she was greeted by two women. One of them had a very soft-looking face, long brown hair, and most prominently, a pair of dog ears on her head and a bushy brown tail growing just over her butt. The other woman had a much sharper face. She had black hair and cat-like blue eyes. Additionally, she had a pair of cat ears on her head and a black cat tail growing out just above her butt. Additionally, both of them were wearing black collars around their neck. The woman, Yuna, couldn't help but smile warmly when she saw the duo greeting her. Without a moment of hesitation, she started petting the duo's heads, causing the dog girl to wag her tail while the cat girl began purring. After the incident with Kazumi, it took some time for Yuna to take in another servant, but ultimately she decided to do so. When you spend multiple days holed up in one room, constantly cultivating, having someone to serve you is somewhat helpful. Thank you for guarding the room. How about a little reward? I can release you two from the slave collars if you want. The cat girl immediately pouted when she heard Yuna's suggestion. Yuna-sama, please stop with that jerk. We have already mentioned that we belong to you multiple times, and we don't want that to change. Yuna chuckled in amusement when she heard the same answer she had received many times by now and continued petting the duo's heads. Unlike with Kazumi, Yuna didn't hide her emotions in front of her two servants, which caused the two to warm up to her quite a bit. Obviously, she didn't blame herself for Kazumi's betrayal all these years ago. She might not have shown her any emotions, but Yuna never mistreated her. In fact, considering she occasionally gave her some cultivation resources that Yuna no longer needed, most people in her position would probably be jealous of her. After all, she was just a mortal slave Yuna had bought cheaply. People like that were usually only used for manual labor, sexual relief, or even worse things. Well, that might be the case, but I still would like to reward you too for how well you have served me so far. After Yuna said that, the duo briefly glanced at each other, and after they saw the glimmer of determination in each other's eyes, they nodded their heads at each other and focused on Yuna. The dog girl was the first to speak. Yuna-sama, we know that it is a rather outrageous request, and we hope that you won't get angry at us for making such a request. Yuna couldn't help but be curious when she saw how the duo suddenly started fidgeting while a slight blush crept upon their faces. Very well, make your request. I swear that I won't get angry, no matter what it is. Yet again, the duo nodded at each other as the cat girl started speaking. If possible, we would like to serve Yuna-sama bowl well. Cough at night. At first, Yuna didn't know what exactly she meant, but after pondering on it for a short moment, she realized what the cat girl meant. Oh? So you want to have sex with me? The duo blushed furiously when they heard Yuna's bold words and meekly lowered their heads. Meanwhile, Yuna was deep in thought about what she should do. Well, I never had sex before, and I can't deny that I'm slightly interested. I have already noticed that my preference seems to be females instead of males. Additionally, I'm rather fond of this duo, so I wouldn't mind getting closer to them. Sure, let's do it. The duos had snapped up in surprise when they heard Yuna's nonchalant answer. However, they couldn't help but be happy that Yuna agreed. Both of them thought of Yuna as their savior. After all, instead of becoming the sex slaves of some random old man, Yuna bought them, resulting in them becoming something like highly regarded servants that were even allowed to cultivate. They never expected their life to take such a sharp turn, so they wanted to return the favor to Yuna with everything they got. Both of them preferred the fair agenda, and since there was nothing else they could offer, they decided to at least offer Yuna to pleasure her at night. They weren't certain whether she would agree or not, but since she did, they couldn't help but get excited to repay some of the favor they owed Yuna. All right, Yuna-sama. We will make sure to make everything as pleasurable as we can for you. Yuna simply nodded her head, and then the trio returned to the room Yuna had just exited. Moments later, the sounds of three people moaning started echoing out of the room for a long time. Around 2 hours later, Yuna stood naked in front of a window, her two servants passed out on the bed. Surprisingly, the bottleneck she previously felt blocking her cultivation was loosened quite a bit. I see, balance. Sex is also a part of life, so it can be used to balance out all the hard work I previously did. Well, it being rather pleasurable obviously is a bonus as well. However, Yuna glanced at her two passed-out servants and shook her head. I'm not satisfied yet. Yuna looked out of the window for quite some time, and after a few dozen minutes of doing so, enlightenment struck her as she started speaking with a voice seemingly containing the world's greatest wisdom. I will make a harem. Chapter 461. Oh. Another enemy for life. It's been a while, Tilda. It was the following day, and Mai couldn't help but look at Yuna in awe as she finished her tale yet again. Mai always suspected that there was some huge secret behind why Yuna was the way she was, but she didn't expect it to be this huge. That certainly explains a few things about Yuna's unnatural behavior and the way she occasionally acts. Living for such a long time would have undoubtedly influenced everybody's personality in some rather unpredictable ways. While Mai was still pondering on what Yuna had just told her, Yuna was casually resting her head on one of her hands while the other one was playing with Mai's hair. Well, do you believe me? Mai could only roll her eyes at that question. Obviously, that story was somewhat unbelievable, but it was probably the truth no matter how Mai looked at it. I believe you. Yuna nodded her head in acknowledgement as she patiently waited for Mai to realize another rather important matter. A few minutes of contemplating later, Mai's eyes widened in shock as her gaze landed on Yuna. Wait a second. If what you just told me is true, wouldn't that mean that you have lived significantly longer than I did and that all the back and forth my mind went through regarding our relationship was utterly useless? Yes, love. Mai's eyebrows twitched in irritation as she glared at Yuna when she heard her especially happy-sounding answer. Why did you do that? You clearly have no qualms about telling me about your past life, so why did you wait for so long? Well, what can I say? I really had a very good reason not to tell you. Oh? In that case, please tell. Mai was a little surprised that Yuna actually had a good reason for not telling her about her past yet, which caused her annoyance and anger to be reduced significantly. However, those feelings returned rather quickly when she heard Yuna's reason. Well, it was just so adorable seeing your desire constantly struggling against your morals that I couldn't help myself. Mai's face deadpanned when she heard Yuna's words, and she did the only thing she could in her current situation. She leaned over to Yuna and bit into one of her breasts. Ha ha ha. Cough, I mean, oh wow, please stop. I give up. Mai huffed when she heard Yuna's fake cries of pain and stopped biting while still giving her accusing glares. Fine, I will partially forgive you since this was my fault for being stubborn to some degree. Yuna nodded in acknowledgement, making Mai consider if she should go for another bite. After deciding against it, she resumed speaking. However, was it really necessary for you to go so hard on me? There is no way I can move my legs for the rest of the day. Yuna sighed as if she was carrying the whole world's burden on her shoulders. So what else was I supposed to do? Hinata said that she would only be fine with me sleeping with you if I made you unable to walk the next day. Mai's eyes sharpened when she heard Yuna's words. Oh? So it's like that, huh? I will definitely get my revenge on her. Yuna could only nod her head when she heard Mai's words. Yep, you should definitely punish her. Although Mai was surprised that Yuna agreed to her words, she couldn't help but be happy when she did. That's right, I will definitely punish her if I get a chance. In that case, you should visit our room tonight. There will be plenty of chances to punish Hinata tonight. In that case, I will definitely come. Oh. No, I don't want anything to do with this. The one I love is you, and I will not participate in anything that involves more than you and I. Yuna chuckled in amusement when she heard Mai's declaration and started patting her head as if she was a little child. That's a really awesome dream you are having there. I'm sure you can make it come true. Mai could only pout as Yuna treated her words like she was a 3-year-old that just declared that her dream was to become a train when she grew up. Meanwhile, I slowly woke up from a good night's sleep and immediately felt like there was something wrong. There was something long and thick on his face that shouldn't be there. He quickly opened his eyes, and when he noticed what it was, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It was a dick. A huge, half-erect dick. I moved faster than he ever did in his life as he explosively got up from his bed. In fact, he jumped up with so much speed and power that his head crashed straight into the ceiling, breaking a hole into it and startling the 2 samurai guarding his door. The duo was shocked when they heard the sudden sound from the person they were supposed to protect and immediately entered the room. After all, if someone attacked the Reikage while they were guarding him, the whole affair might actually turn into a war. They swiftly opened the door, and as soon as they saw what was going on, they froze in place. I was currently hanging from the ceiling with his head stuck in it, while a man with a massive penis was resting in his bed. The duo nodded at each other and slowly left the room again. Sorry for the interruption, Adona. Please continue with whatever you were doing, Adona. Neither of the two had any interest in discovering what kind of degeneracies the 4th Reikage was into, so they quickly left the room. Meanwhile, A managed to pull himself out of the ceiling and immediately grabbed the head of the unknown person who sneaked into his room. Just to be clear, he grabbed the head ahead and not the other one. You bastard, how did you? However, just as A was about to fly into a rage, he noticed that the person he just grabbed was a human-looking mannequin. What the hell? Did someone sneak in here just to play a prank on me? Are they tired of living? If I find out who did this, I will turn them into meat paste. I inspected the mannequin and tried to find some clues about who the perpetrator was, and surprisingly, he found something. On the mannequin's penis, a few words were written in shiny blue color. One of A's blood vessels almost burst when he read the text. This dick was handcrafted by Yuna Uzumaki-sama. You have a permission to feel on it. I crushed the mannequin's neck as veins popped up all over his face. Moments later, an anger-filled roar echoed over the whole building. I will definitely kill you, Yuna Uzumaki. Chapter 462, Oh, again. My summer. Are you Aurine? Splat. Without any warning, Ao burst into the room where Yuna and Mai had spent the night and immediately got a cake in his face. Simultaneously, ropes appeared out of nowhere and tied him up while sealing away his chakra. Mai looked at the tied-up Ao and couldn't help but shake her head. Couldn't you have tied him up normally? Seeing an old uncle tied up in a reverse shrimp tie is not something I want to see in the morning. Yuna's eyebrows rose when she heard Mai's words. I'm surprised you know about the name of the rope technique. Mai's face flushed when she realized that she had just said something she shouldn't have. Cough, I have read about it. Oh? Are you a fan of my books? Why your books? Before answering, Yuna flicked her wrist, causing a book to appear in her hand. Yep, these were written by me. Mai's eyes widened as she looked back and forth between Yuna's face and the book she was holding, and moments later, she exclaimed aloud. You are Rose-sensei. Hee, yip tilde. Meanwhile, Ao had tears flowing down his face like a river as he wiggled around on the ground. Mai-sama, until your right-hand man. I can understand you're ignoring me, but why are you doing the same? Could you please help me out? Around 2 minutes later, Mai blushed a little as she realized that she had been fangirling a little and had totally forgotten that Ao was in the room as well. Cough, could you please untie Ao, Yuna? MHH. Sure. Yuna dramatically snapped her finger, causing all of Ao's bindings to fall to the floor. He furiously stood up and wiped the cake out of his face with one hand while the other accusingly pointed at Yuna, who had put on some clothes by now. You? Me? You knocked me out and No, I didn't. Defiled my summer. Yes, I did. Ao's paused for a moment as he thought over what just happened and became even angrier. What do you mean by you didn't knock me out? Well, do you have any proof that it was me? Did you see me do it? Hear me? Felt my presence? Spotted me with that fancy Byakugan of yours? Ao's whole body shook in anger while clenching his fists so hard that his nails threatened to draw blood. Unfortunately, Yuna was right. He had not the slightest piece of evidence. Why you knocked me out so you can have your way with my Sama? Now, that's just ridiculous. Just because I could take advantage of you getting knocked out doesn't mean that it was me. Before Ao could come up with anything else, the door opened again, and Hinata walked into the room and immediately started glaring at Mai, who glared back. However, a slight smirk appeared on Hinata's face a few seconds later. He, you should get up, Mai-sama. The other cage are already waiting for you, Tilda. Mai's glare intensified when she heard Hinata's teasing words and remembered that she was the one who asked Yuna to go overboard. She got up from bed and tried to stand on her own 2 feet, which immediately started to wobble, making her look like a freshly born fowl, causing Hinata's grin to widen. What's wrong? Is there a problem with your legs? Ao also frowned when he saw that Mai seemed to have trouble standing, but he couldn't understand the reason for that at first. Yes, he realized that Mai had spent the night with Yuna, but he didn't think that could be why. After all, Mai was a cage. Just how much endurance and stamina does a cage have? He didn't believe that someone could wear her out that much, even if it were a monster like Yuna. What's wrong, Mai-sama? Do you want me to call a medic? Mai couldn't help but glare at Ao when she heard his words. Call a medic? Do you want the whole world to know that I'm incapable of walking because I had too much sex? Might as well directly assassinate me to reduce the pain. Don't talk nonsense, Ao. I'm fine. As she said that, she forcefully stood up while circulating some chakra through her legs, slightly stabilizing the situation. See, perfectly fine. Although Ao still had some doubts about that, he decided to simply nod his head and let the matter go. Since Mai said it was fine, he decided to simply believe her for now while monitoring her condition in case there really was a problem. Where is she? Only after killing her can I be satisfied. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed over the building, causing Yuna to smirk while Hinata could only face palm. She had no idea what happened, but she was pretty sure that Yuna did something outrageous again. Suddenly, a burst through the door, charging Yuna like a wild bull with lightning chakra covering his whole body. Die. Lightning style, lariat. The fourth Raikid's arm stretched out sideways as he tried hitting Yuna's neck with his upper arm. A dangerous glint appeared in Yuna's eyes as she quickly got away from the bed so that Mai wouldn't be caught in the crossfire. A split second before A's arm could hit Yuna, she used one of the most basic ninjutsu in every shinobi's arsenal. The substitution jutsu. A immediately tore whatever Yuna substituted herself with to pieces and was just about to look for Yuna when... slap. Something long and floppy smacked him in the face. A was somewhat confused by this, as he was still wearing his chakra armor. So, whatever hit him could ignore his armor while dealing no damage to him either. A looked at the object that just hit him, and moments later, he got even angrier. Yuna had substituted herself with another mannequin, and as a result of A hitting its upper body, it started spinning, resulting in its stick slapping A into the face. I will definitely kill you, Yuna Uzumaki. Okay. Chapter 463, Looking at a Good Show. When A heard Yuna's indifferent answer, he attacked yet again, but just like in the conference room, Yuna caught his fist with an ice-coated hand. Can we skip this fight? I've already defeated the previous Raikage and have very little interest in you. Naturally, A was surprised when Yuna mentioned the previous Raikage. After all, he died before Yuna was even born. What kind of nonsense are you speaking about? The third Raikage died before you were even born. Yuna nodded in acknowledgement before shrugging her shoulders. Although that might be the case, Orochimaru reanimated him a while ago and tried to kill me using him and a few other reanimated people. I was somewhat surprised when he heard that Orochimaru had reanimated his father and that Yuna had defeated him. Although it wasn't easy, one of his spies in Konoha managed to gather basic information about the reanimation technique Orochimaru could use. The reanimated person had endless chakra and all wounds would heal instantly. Additionally, the person wouldn't be as strong as they were in their prime. Due to the last point, a sneer appeared on A's face. So what if you defeated him? I admit that I'm not as strong as my father, but didn't you just fight a weak imitation instead of the real deal? Yuna shrugged her shoulders when she heard A's words. Although she didn't know whether the third Raikage she fought was at full power or not, she was confident the gap wasn't as dramatic as it was when she fought Hashirama, who was laughably weak. While Hashirama could at best fight with 10% of his power, the third Raikage could at least use 90% of his. Anyway, I still have very little interest in fighting you. Why are you even acting so aggressive? Wasn't it just a little prank? A prank? You humiliated me. Yeah, and I did so in your room with not a single person as a witness. You could have just shrugged it off, and no one would have ever heard about the incident. Instead of that, you are on the verge of causing an international incident that could break our alliance right before a massive war. I'm causing an incident? Aren't you the one who started this? Yuna could only shake her head when she heard A's words. As expected, choosing a leader solely based on their strength is not necessarily a great idea. Sai, aren't you misunderstanding something? This alliance doesn't need Kumo. Kumo needs this alliance. A froze when he realized what Yuna meant. Even if he left the alliance, that wouldn't change the position of the other 4 villages. Additionally, Kumo would undoubtedly become a target in this war since they still had their Jinchuriki. Considering the opponent's confidence to take on the world, I doubted that Kumo could defeat them alone. What made all of this even worse was that even if Kumo managed to come out of this alive, there would be an alliance of 4 great villages while Kumo stood alone. After he understood all of that, he slowly calmed down while almost clenching his teeth so hard that they were about to be ground into dust. Yuna could only shake her head when she realized that A had finally understood what kind of situation he was in. Seriously, you should have just stayed in your room and dismissed it as a silly jerk. Now that you have blown up the matter, 2 other Kage witnessed me pranking you. I was confused by Yuna's words. 2 Kage? Why would 2 Kage be in Yuna's room this early in the morning? Unfortunately, when he charged into the room, the only thing he saw was Yuna, due to being so focused on her, so he didn't notice Mai's presence in the slightest. I looked around the room in confusion, and moments later, his chin hit the floor as he saw Mai Terumi lazing around on the bed and looking at him with interest. Obviously, she also had put on some clothes before Yuna untied Ao. Why are you here, Mizukichi Dono? Mai chuckled in amusement as she seductively stretched her back, showing off her curves, making her nada pout and Ao avert his face. Oh, I wasn't expecting that I had to explain the matters between the birds and the bees to Raikage Dono. Well, in this case, it's more like the birds and the birds. Only now did I realize that he had indeed received a report about Yuna and my kissing. I should have put more attention on this. It seems like the alliance between Konoha and Kuri is much tighter than I anticipated. However, I quickly realized something else. Yuna just mentioned 2 Kage, so there must be another witness. His eyes wandered through the room and quickly noticed a blonde woman casually leaning against the doorframe of the room's entrance with a huge glass bottle in her hand. Quite the hectic morning, isn't it? A's face deadpanned when he saw that Tsunade was already drinking alcohol this early in the morning. Are you seriously getting drunk on the day we will deepen our alliance and hash out the finer details? Isn't that a little too irresponsible? Tsunade scoffed in disdain when she heard A's accusation and took another sip, completely ignoring his words. Oh yeah. In that case, are you seriously getting cock-slapped this early in the morning? Shouldn't you be preparing yourself for the negotiation instead of living out your fetishes? A's mouth opened wide when he heard Tsunade's insult. Yuna insulting people wasn't too surprising to him, but he would never expect Tsunade to do the same. He was very close to attacking Tsunade, however, he was fully aware that Kumo needed this alliance now, so he did the only thing he could do. Big words for a drunkard who does nothing but drink all day. He threw out another insult to douse the flames of anger burning inside him a little and left the room before more insults could be thrown at him. As soon as he left, Yuna's gaze landed on Tsunade, and she tilted her head in confusion. "Why are you here, Tsunade?" Tsunade shrugged her shoulders when she heard Yuna's question. "Well, I heard the Reikage running around screaming about killing her, so I concluded that you messed with him and came over to take a look at the show." "Ah, that makes sense.